It's time for another podcast by George, and I'm glad you're here. Have you been watching this on TV all week long?
This could get bad quickly.
The heart of this storm.
Oh, the wind's over 95.
Look at the sheer amount of water.
The wind is increasing.
And the gusts.
It is crazy.
Absolute madness. Woo! We'll hold on to that.
I gotta get out.
You really have to hold on.
I'm legitimately having to hold on.
I got 1 foot in the pool holding on.
The wind obviously is a big part of this story. It's what looks cool on television.
You certainly don't want to be out in these conditions.
This is a reminder of why people need to evacuate.
And I have to hold on to my hat because it will fly away.
We're feeling the brunt of these hurricane-force winds.
This is what a Category 1 storm looks like.
These streets are starting to get flooded.
The water appears to be trying to wash away a dock.
Layers upon layers, everything is just soaked.
Pretty soaked right now, I gotta say.
I feel like I'm in an enormous shower.
The building was vibrating, literally.
The situation is getting even more critical. So the wind that's coming this way at some point is going to shift and it's going to push that way. I'm using a building as kind of a wind block. It's almost like we're in a plastic bag.
It feels like we're getting blasted, almost like a jet engine.
Something flying around out here.
Decorative balls come out of the tree.
Look at this metal pole. I can't move this at all.
That's a piece of roof right there.
Look at that. It's like a sail.
See, it is a very gross water, and if I'm being honest, it smells too.
We're in one of these bands. This is about as nasty as it's been. It's going to be, unfortunately, a very long day, guys.
It will be for you.
Well, that news coverage has been something else this week. It's been everywhere. It's been ubiquitous. It's been inundating. You can't seem to get away from it. And the thing that I'd like to say about that is sometimes too much is a bad thing. It causes people to think that the news media is crying wolf and that the storm really isn't that bad. It is that bad. As of this recording, 9 people have already died in Hurricane Florence, and a lot of people refuse to evacuate. And I always wonder about that. Remember Harry R. Truman at Mount St. Helens refused to evacuate. The old codger was living out there at the foot of the volcano, had news media all over the place interviewing him. He became a local celebrity. He liked to drink his whiskey and Coke a little bit too much, I think. He was in his cups about half of the time, living out there with 16 cats that are now buried 100 feet deep in molten lava and ash because he refused to evacuate Mount St. Helens. He's the most famous non-evacuator of my lifetime, and he paid for it with his life. Harry R. Truman. If you kids don't remember who he was, you can look him up in the history books because he was really something else. Cantankerous, to say the least. Hated Democrats, believed that he knew everything, didn't want to listen to anybody, didn't believe any of the predictions about the eruption of the volcano. And like I said, he's buried 100 feet deep right where he stood because of it. Harry R. Truman. Well, that's the other thing about these evacuations. Now, if you're too old and too infirm to get out, all right, my heart goes out to you and you need some help. If you're too poor, you don't have the means to get out because you just don't have the wherewithal you don't have a car, you don't have the ability to get out, okay, then you need some help. But if you're just a Harry R. Truman, if you're just contrary, if you're just a know-it-all, if you're a cracker living out there with a gun, a four-wheel drive pickup, and a Bible, and you refuse to leave, I don't feel sorry for you at all. And I'm not real anxious to evacuate you. We want to save people's lives, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to be first on my list to get you out there. And after the evacuation is over with, you might get a bill. I think that's just fair. You know, people that don't do what they're supposed to do and end up costing the taxpayers money should get a bill for it. So from Hurricane Florence to climate change, it's an easy transition to make. Here's a tougher story to report, at least for me anyway, because we're going to wrap up the show today with perspective from the pontificating pantload himself, Rush Limbaugh, as reported in The Hill this week. Rush Limbaugh said Tuesday that predictions of vast doom and gloom from Hurricane Florence are meant to heighten the belief in climate change. While discussing on his talk radio show the latest news about Hurricane Florence as the Category 4 storm worked its way toward the East Coast, the conservative political commentator told his listeners to be wary of forecasts that are made to order for the climate change/global warming crowd. Limbaugh says, "This, they tell us, is one of the most powerful hurricanes this far north ever. And of course, why is that? Well, that would be sea surface temperature. And why is that warmer? There you go. Climate change," Limbaugh said, according to a show transcript. Limbaugh went on to say, "It's being accepted as a non-argumentative fact. I don't care what meteorologist you watch or read, website, or what have you. All of this seems to be acknowledged fact. So we're keeping an eye on that." These guys are great, the way they want to move these facts around and change truth and science and facts. This is argumentative, acknowledged fact. And I feel a lot better tonight going to bed realizing that Rush Limbaugh and his ilk are keeping an eye on what's happening with climate change in this world of ours. We've got 100,000 of the world's best climate scientists working on climate change. Rush Limbaugh is going to keep an eye on it for us, folks. Also, these things have become very politicized, as you know, folks, he added. Hurricanes and hurricane forecasting is much like much else that the left has gotten its hand on, and they politicize these things. For those of you asking what's the politics of a hurricane, climate change is the politics of hurricanes, Limbaugh continued. The forecast and the destruction potential, doom and gloom, is all to heighten the belief in climate change. My experience is that the storms are bad. You don't want to get into arguments over degrees. I mean, what? What is that all about? What is... This guy talks, and he's been on the air for decades, and he says nothing. That's a bunch of gobbledygook. I don't understand it at all. The other thing I don't understand about climate change, to be real truthful with you, initially most people didn't believe what Al Gore had to say at all about climate change. Now they're saying, well, maybe we were wrong. We believe in climate change. We just don't believe it's man-made. Well, wait a minute. The original predictions that you didn't believe it was climate change caused by man, caused by mankind, caused by womankind, however you want to look at it. Well, if you didn't believe that, and now you believe some of it, why don't you believe the rest? That is more in line with the politics of climate change, according to our good friend Rush. Well, who thought we'd ever wrap up a podcast by George with the pontificating pantload Rush Limbaugh? But we did, so I want to get out of here and say we'll see you soon on another podcast by George.